In your handout, in the packet, of course, you have the one about you take some notes on action steps. We'll come back to these at the end. Even though it's the last seminar of the year, we still have action steps for you. This is something we refer to a lot, the stages of readiness. And now, if I really wanted to put you on the spot, I would say, okay, let's have all of you who are in the denial stage stand. Those of you who are going, never, I'm just here because somebody made me come. I'm not looking at anybody, but that's the beginning. Any change, it's the, I won't, some people are being pointed at. That's not very nice. Anyway, okay. But look, it's not complete denial if you're here. You're thinking, you're asking questions. And it's always fun as I visit with people and hear them begin to say, well, maybe I should think about that for my friend, not for me, for my friend, Okay, but so I think if you're here, you've moved into that thinking stage. And some of us may be in the thinking stage for a very long time. I understand that. But often something happens and you kind of cross over to planning. Well, yeah, I want to go visit these communities. I want to begin to compare. I want to get my affairs in order. No, I don't need to do that. I'm too young. I don't need to do that. I'll wait. Guess what happens if you wait too long? A crisis occurs. I think Armando will be kind of addressing that today too. But planning, getting information, learning from others, and then we move into that taking action. Okay, I'm going to do this, And I just see it's a fun process to watch people go through. And I know it's hard. We just want to support people to keep you moving for what's best for you. And that's what we really talk about. And then the final stage on this is that thrive, embrace your new community. It's a kind of a resolution. You've worked through this and you've made an adjustment. So I just think I want to include us. I think we may even ask you as an action step where you would rate yourself. We're not going to give you a test and make you turn in your papers, although then the other piece, and this all relates to our panel today. In our group, we developed this downsizing puzzle. When people are looking to downsize, we really broke it down to what are the bits and pieces that people need to consider, to plan for, depending on what degree of support you need. So we use this a lot, and it'll probably be referenced today. I know it will in our panel. And so that's an important part for the way we look at how we support seniors. The next piece that's in there, introducing the downsizing club. I'm just going to go ahead and mention it briefly. We'll mention it again at the end. I really started this for people to say, well, I know I'm not moving now, so I don't need this. I might move in 2, 3, sometime, but maybe I should start downsizing, meaning I should start thinking about the stuff I have, what I might be able to do. And so anyway, this is a support group. Let me go ahead and I often have them do this, but if you're in the downsizing club, stand up. I know we have some people here. Evelyn, there she is, Evelyn. Oh, that's Mary. Okay, and we have a graduate who will be on our panel today. So you can find out more about that. And I want to say we are so thankful for our educational partners who helped to make this all possible. Okay, let me see if, okay, so for our panel today, we really wanted to, in fact, we did this last year too. In November is kind of our, like I say, it's kind of like a graduation almost. I was in the academic world for 25 years. So, graduation's part of that milestone there. We want people to share their stories. We know the power of stories. I can talk about this. Armando, people from other communities can talk about it. But it's when you talk to experts, people who made the transition, people just like you who've faced the challenges, figured out solutions. So we've started having this for our November panel. And the way we're going to set this up today is they're focusing, I hope, but this is the plan, on what triggered, why did they go ahead and make that decision to move? What maybe factors influence that? How did they make the move? Some of us shut down. I thought, no, it's just too much trouble. I can't move, let alone get rid of the stuff, just staying put. We're not going to deal with liquidation that much today. They'll mention briefly kind of what they did because we've had other sessions. We have some on video about that, and we'll have some more coming up. But then we're going to talk about, so what's life in your new community like? And I just think it's helpful to hear these stories. And so as we were planning this, we always say our expert senior panelists, I decided it would be helpful to add an extra component. And so I've invited Yomita, one of our community representatives, to be with us today to give kind of a bird's eye view. They see a lot of people moving into their communities and adjusting to the communities. And some probably go very well, and others may have some challenges. So we're going to give you that bird's eye perspective too, that hopefully it will help you be more prepared should you decide you're ready to make that transition. So I'm going to ask our panelists to come up. They're looking at me like, really? Yes, really. So I'm going to let Armando sit there. Ann, you're in the middle. Pat, you're here. Now, they did a mic check for us earlier, so I hope we're still okay. And we'll find out when they introduce themselves. So we're going to start with a brief introduction, who you are, where you lived, where you live now, and how long you've been at your new place. But you have to speak into the mic.
Is that on?
Yeah, it is. I think so. Hold it up close.
I'm Pat Sykes.
Maybe we're not on. Are we on?
Real closer.
Real close.
Real close.
Yeah, that's better. Okay now? Okay.
I'm Pat Sykes. I've been in Georgetown since 2010. I lived in Sun City. I currently live at the Wesleyan. I've been there since June the 8th, so I think that's about 5 months.
Okay. So we're going to learn about your story in just a minute. Okay. Ann. Close? Yeah, okay.
I'm Ann Bell, and I've been in Georgetown 17 years, and I lived in Katy Crossing subdivision, and I moved to the Wesleyan in June of 22.
So she's been there a little bit longer, over a year. Okay. And guess what? Tomorrow is the anniversary when we actually closed on your house. Another milestone.
That was a big deal.
A big deal. And Armando.
Hi, I'm Armando Garza. I work at the Delaney, and I'm the gentleman that gives you guys a tour and spends time answering all your questions. And I'm glad that I was invited today, although Virginia said all I had to do was tell jokes for 5 minutes, but I guess that's different.
So Armando is not here necessarily to sell you on the Delaney, but he is here to share, as I said, the bird's eye view of people moving into a community. We're going to hear the firsthand personal stories, and then you can extend that a little bit further for us. Okay. So I'm going to start with, okay. I'm going to start with Pat on this one. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to make the move from your house into independent living.
Well, when I moved to Georgetown, I only intended to live in Sun City for about 10 years, which would have made me move in 2020. Well, you know what happened in 2020.
Can you hear her okay? Okay.
So it sort of messed up my plans. And I had started looking at independent living about 2 years prior to 2020. So I've been in looking around for quite a few years, uh, both in Georgetown and in Round Rock. And I finally decided that since I had been a caregiver, I did not want someone caring for me, which I only have the one daughter. And I was a member of the downsizing club, so I got closer and closer and closer. I called the Wesleyan, which I had visited before, and said, it's been so long since I've been here. Can you show me your apartments again? And they showed me one on the first floor without carpet, which I wanted. And it was the model that I wanted. I don't make decisions quickly, but I said, I'll take it.
Okay. All right.
So I took it, and then I really had to get busy.
You're going to hear more about her transition in just a minute. So I think you made an interesting point. You had been a caregiver for your husband for many years.
And also a caregiver for my mother for about 5 years.
Okay. So you knew you wanted to be in a community or a different environment where it'd be more care of it should you need it. You don't need care now, but planning ahead.
Yes, I did not want to put that burden on my daughter.
Okay. All right. So, we're not waiting until something really happens. She just decided to do it in that right apartment. Believe me, she's been thinking about this for years. And then she said, oh, I found my apartment. I'm moving. Oh, my goodness. So you never know what's going to happen. Okay. We'll come back to you in a minute. Ann, tell us your story about your decision.
Well, I bought the house, I'm going to live here till I die kind of thing. And COVID hit, and the best I could do was get a cat. And then I ended up having to have foot surgery, which slowed me down a little bit more. And then both of my kids were having some very serious health issues. So that's the last thing they needed to worry about was me. So as my foot was healing, I had this very steep driveway, which I really hadn't noticed much before. And it kept getting steeper and steeper. And I didn't think, depending on my neighbors, to bring in my garbage can was a good retirement method. So I started looking around.
Okay. So a little warning that maybe you should be more proactive there. And you made the decision. And I think you visited different communities.
I visited 3 or 4 communities and
Okay.
settled on the Wesleyan.
Okay. And I know we're not trying to promote one. It just happened, Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to come back. Okay. So you have a little bit of context about why they moved. It's to be prepared and be proactive in both of your cases. So let's go back to how did you plan for the move? You've signed the papers, you're moving, and now you have, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do? Pat, you want to start that one off with us? I'm going to start with Ann for this one. I'll explain why. Ann, so how did you make the move?
Well, I used all of your services because I didn't want to bother, the kids. I consult and we did a lot of texting back and forth. But when it came to she arranged for the packers and the movers and all the things. And then I went little by little, closet by closet to do the things I could. And I wasn't up to a garage sale. So Caring Place was a good place. So I used all their services.
So you made lots of trips to that, but you did have the move manager to work with you and to handle the packing, the move day, the move in, the resettling. Go ahead and share your story about when you arrived and somebody down the hall was arriving.
Yeah, the move went really easily and they came and I just had to disappear for a couple hours and come back. And even my underwear and kitchen utensils were in the right drawers. And a gal, a couple doors down, came the very same day, and her family had been helping her, and they ended up with too much stuff in the same spot. They were totally exhausted, and 3 or 4 days later, she was still, exhausted and little by little putting things away. So it was well worth the
So while she was exhausted, what were you doing?
looking around, seeing what they had to offer.
You and your cat, they both have cats, so hear cat stories. So you and Frankie just walked into your apartment, much to Frankie's relief. Frankie was a little upset during the transition.
Yeah, that's another Frankie story.
Yeah, you can get lots of cat stories from here. Okay. So, the interesting part here, this worked well for you. You said, this is what I want. I'm willing to make the investment, come do it. And you did it. Now, Pat, our planner who likes to always be in control, and you tell us a little bit about how you made your move. It worked well. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Well, I downsized for years. Anybody that visited me, especially family, you can't come to my house without going home with something.
Okay, I want to, yes, believe me, when I would go to see Pat over a period of time, zoom, zoom, more, no, I didn't take it home. She probably tried, but there was more stuff gone. And by the time we got ready to move, it was down to the bare minimum. I mean, but your sister and your daughter were wonderful resources.
Even my next door neighbor couldn't come over without taking something home. Even a friend from the downsizing club came over and took stuff home.
We're there to help. We are.
She knows who she is.
She's even raising her hand.
And last meeting, I met her sister, who has some of my stuff. So you come, you go, don't go empty-handed. Even the movers took some of my stuff home.
We had appliances and beds, I think, that were going to be for sale. And lo and behold, they just, I can use that. I've got a relative.
Right, the movers, some of
You
they
and
were
that
going
might.
to take stuff out to the curb for me that I'd arranged for the town of Georgetown to pick up the following day. And they said, I can use that. So there was only one item left, a bed, for the town of Georgetown to pick up the next.
Now, I'm not advocating that for everybody, but I am saying our stories are different and what works. So you were down to a bare minimum and had stuff sorted. So when it came down for packing, whatever was there was to be packed and moved, pretty much. And you had it all labeled. We had it clustered together. Tall bookcase, low bookcase. I mean, she had this great labeling system. Everything was labeled. It had all been, and we're going to go back for floor planning in a minute with you. Floor planning was critical. We measured the furniture, and you had it all planned.
Virginia came over
I
to the
knew.
Wesleyan and put tape on the floor wherever a piece of furniture was supposed to go.
Oh, you might.
And so we knew what was going to fit in the apartment. If it didn't fit, it didn't go. And the movers brought it over. I wasn't even at the apartment when we moved in.
And where were you with Miss Kitty?
I was with my cat. I've got a 19-year-old cat that I was afraid would not make the move, but she did very well. She did better than I did. We made it okay. We stayed in the house while Virginia and her crew were moving everything over to the Wesleyan. Everything was getting unpacked before I got over there. But at the end of the day, I decided that I would rather unpack the rest of it. I was a Navy wife, and I've had a lot of moves.
I
and
hear people
decided I
identifying.
wanted to know where everything was. So I stopped the unpacking and said, I'll do the rest of it.
And we had agreed to that. I had been really worried about that part of it. And the day before, when we were finishing things, she shared that story about, I really didn't like it when they unpacked me. And I'm going, oh, okay. So we got the bed made up, and the same thing with your group. The essentials in the kitchen, you rearranged them, but we had it set up. And I think because in Ann's case, it was a little bit different, but they had everything unpacked and set up, and pretty much all boxes were gone when you arrived at the end of the day. Pat wanted to do her unpacking, but we had labeled the boxes such that they were all in the right room next to the tall bookcase or the short bookcase or wherever they were to go, which made it a lot easier. It wasn't a tripping hazard. You and Miss Kitty could come in, and Miss Kitty did survive all of it. Didn't come out of her secure spot for a while, but
She's still surviving. Barely, but she's surviving.
so, it's back to what do you need to make the move? What works for you? And you had different, a key part, you left out part of the floor planning, which was fine, but when we were putting tape on the floor, the truth was, as it turned out, I was sliding around on the floor. I really should have charged the community because I mopped the floor by sliding, not what I advocate.
She's a lot more agile than I thought she was.
So we did that. Floor planning is critical. Now, in Ann's case with the move management crew, they generated 2 or 3 floor plans for you. Go ahead and tell them about your floor planning.
Well, you always have to move with the tape measure. And I had everything I thought figured out where it would go and what I would take and what, replace the bigger table and those kind of things. And they came in with their computerized model. The thing that I missed was I had a bookcase and I hadn't noticed a light switch and the height of the light switch and the temperature gauge was all right there. And I had a major bookcase in front of them. So they went with their model. And we had the number of bookcases because that was my thing, is get as many books in as possible. But when the movers came in, somebody slipped up and they moved an extra tall bookcase that wasn't on the plan, but somehow the Packers made it work. And so I ended up where I wanted to be and more because I had a short bookcase besides, but the Packers made it work and looked good and everything.
So that setting up floor planning, and I just want to emphasize that because it makes such a difference in moves. And I think Armando may address that a little bit too. But as Ann shared the story with people down the hall, I know one day in particular, a whole different situation, walking down to meet with people, I'm walking back out and apparently a woman and her daughter had just moved into their apartment. And moving's not easy, I know that. And they were standing there. Their apartment was so full of boxes, and it's like 5 o'clock in the evening or later. And my heart went out. They were both looking at each other going, now what? And that was soon after Ann had moved. And I kept thinking about Ann's story about, I just went into my apartment and you were able to find your bed and in your apartment. And then we saved things for you to have to do, which is what you wanted. So, we meet the needs of people, and you'll hear more about this in a while too. Looking back at that move part, the transition, is there anything you would do differently, either one of you?
I'd board my cat at a better place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we won't go into, but the point we will go into is the importance of making arrangements for pets.
Yes.
Now, her cat is Frankie. Frankie's pretty independent. Frankie didn't like his temporary abode and whatever. We won't go into all that. You can talk to Pat for more to Ann for more details. Pat and Miss Kitty spent the day. Miss Kitty was quite happy. She spent the day on your lap, out on your patio porch. So she was not inconvenienced until she got loaded up to go to her new home. But, planning ahead, it really is important. And vets, they may, have some kind of suggestion, to calm your pet's anxiety. So I remember my husband and I moved almost 3 years ago now. I didn't realize the solution to our cat was kind of like yours. He took the cat to the new place and kept her over there all day. I thought he was coming back to help me. Well, no, I needed to stay with Simone. Anyway, I should have had a move manager, but I did not. Okay, so we got him moved and everybody survived. So now tell us a little bit about the lifestyle at your new apartment. Let's start with Ann this time. So you're at the Wesleyan, and all of our, well, I can't generalize, but hopefully any community you would move to would have wonderful amenities, activities geared for seniors. Some of you would choose to participate, others perhaps not, but it's there for you. So let's start with Ann.
Well, having lived with on TV dinners for several years, it was kind of good to eat regular food on a regular basis.
I love true confessions. Thank you, Ann. Okay, so you were pleased to have the meal service. Okay, that
Yes.
worked well for you. Okay, anything else that comes to your mind?
Really, just the extra activities. You don't have the isolation, so you could be as social and or unsocial as you want to be. And even the exercises, which I was getting pretty lax on. Sure, you can do it with your TV, but you usually don't if you do exercises with TV to have a group to do it with, those kind of things.
Okay, all right, let's hear from you, Pat. What about your life at the Wesleyan? Besides caregiving for a neighbor's cat, but that's another story. Hold your mic towards you.
I'm pretty much, have always been pretty much a loner. So I'm getting more accustomed to being around people, and there's certainly more people around me. I've not participated in a lot of the activities. Most of my participation is around meal times when I'm around people. There are a lot of people I haven't met yet, but people are very friendly. Anne is somebody I already knew before we were asked to be panelists. We sort of tend to group because we have a period of time when we'll say lunch is served, which is 11:30 to 1. So you don't have to be there at a particular time, just within that time period. But most of us are creatures of habit. So if you're used to going at, say, 11:30, the same people are showing up at 11:30. So you tend to get to know the people fairly well, fairly quickly. But in 5 months, I've met quite a number of people, but we still sort of congregate with the same group we met.
We are creatures of habit, so yeah.
We really are. So I have found that a lot of the people I've met are from Sun City. I didn't know them in Sun City, but it's like Sun City East. Almost everybody I've met has said they've been there.
Now, Ann is from the other side of town, so we do balance that out a little bit. Okay, all right. So I think one thing I wanted to emphasize, it's interesting to hear some people are saying, oh, but no, I don't want to do all those activities. Just let me be. Okay. So you find a balance with that. You like to be in your apartment. You do like to go down for your meals, and life is good. Whereas Ann tends to enter into more activities, it sounds like. But do either one of you play beanbag baseball?
I do chair volleyball.
Okay, all right, that's good. So you're going, what in the world? To go visit a community and you'll understand beanbag baseball and chair volleyball. And we go, that is the dumbest thing. You know what? When you get into it, it is fun.
It makes you laugh.
There you go. And laughter is important. Social engagement, social interaction, even if it's at mealtime only. I mean, so you are definitely interacting with people there. You're also interacting with people who need help with their cats. So, it's the same how we form connections with people. Okay. Looking back, any words of advice you would give for people who are somewhere in the planning stages? Either
To
one?
move before the crisis hits.
Okay. All right. I know you hear that, move before the crisis hits. If we only had the crystal ball that says move before January 15th, 2024. Some of us have some perhaps minor health things that may cause us to kind of trigger, but be proactive. Okay, that's an important point. I know it's going to be picked up on in a minute too. Anything else, Pat? You have any words of advice?
Well, you're not going to have more energy.
Ah,
Well,
yeah, a true statement. I love it when people will say, "Oh, we can do this move." We've moved 20 times in our lives, and of course, probably 18 or 19 or even 20 of those often was done by a company that you were working with, and you really didn't do the move yourself. And even then, if you did the move yourself, chances are you had a stronger back, you had more energy, it was a little bit easier to lift those boxes. I don't know why that happens, but it happens. So, okay, so energy, get it done for you.
you're not getting any younger.
What sage wisdom you offer.
Truly.
Truly. Okay. All right. I'm going to let you all put your mics down for just a minute. We're going to come back and you'll have a chance to ask them questions. But I want to go to Armando. Okay. So you've heard their stories and you've seen similar stories in your community. I asked him, what are some kind of highlights, bullet points to make people aware of? What are your words of wisdom for people who, and see, we can do it now. Now, if he tells you that when you're meeting with him, he's trying to sell me on that community. Right now, he is a general representative of the senior industry, senior living. So what are some words of advice you have?
Well, for the men, I will say that I moved when I came home and I saw the realtor leaving my house and I walked in. I told my wife, "What's going on?" She said, "Oh, by the way, we're moving." So I'm still happily married.
Make it
So
happen.
I'm letting you know if your wife says, "By the way, we're moving," you guys say, "Where are we going?" And that's what I did. Uh, I see one of two people that are couples that come see us. One that's being proactive. They said, "We're still a year out, 2 years out, maybe 6 months out. But we're doing the research now because we want to know where we want to go. We don't want to show up a week out and say, I'll take whatever you've got because I've got to be out of my house. Or my husband or my wife needs assistance and I can't do that any longer. So what do you have?" But when you're proactive, it allows you to go to the Wesleyan, to Grand Living, to us, to Delaney, take a tour, have dinner with us, have lunch with us, and say, I like these amenities. I don't like these amenities. Come back 2 or 3 times. That's important because you have to feel comfortable where you're going. It's your new home. The hardest part is leaving a home, no matter where you're going. You've put down roots, whether like myself, where I laid down 40 pallets of grass and I told my wife, but I laid out this whole lawn. I don't want to leave it. I have gentlemen that tell me I do the lawn every Saturday. I mow it, I got my roses. I have wives that tell me, here's where the kids grew up. I've got markings on the walls. I don't want to leave. But there comes a time that we have to realize that it's a lot of work to keep up a house. It's a lot of work to do all that. It would be great to move into the place and let somebody else do all that. Really, we've become cruise ships on land. You get up in the morning, what do I want to do today? Oh, I want to go do these activities today. Oh, they're going to Fredericksburg to do a wine tasting? I'm riding to Fredericksburg to do a wine tasting. And I come home, my apartment's already clean, the housekeeping's been in there, everything's done. Oh, I don't want to cook today. I'm going to the restaurant. What are we eating today? That is the best feeling. I love doing that there. I put on 20 pounds since I've worked there, and my wife says, don't eat there anymore. By the way, holidays I love because I get so many pies from you guys. The second group of people I see is where the families are coming in and saying, we need a spot for mom or dad. They are living by themselves now, but they can't be by themselves anymore. and I've got to get something as fast as possible. I live 2 cities away, 2 states away, and I can't be here. I've got my own family. And the resident feels like they don't have a choice in making the decision. And that's important. And I tell the families, bring them with you, give them the choice. Oh, they'll never come if I let them know. I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to drop them off.
That might be a bad beginning.
It is a horrible beginning. People hate me for that, and I had nothing to do with it. But they said, I'm just going to drop them off. I'll tell them the week before they're going to move in. I said, that's not a good thing to do. Involve them. Involve them in the decision. Bring them. Let them see. They might not be happy about it, but they're reasonable people. They understand. Those are the two people I see, and I always tell everyone, I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm here to just let you know what we can do for you. And if we can help you, I'm more than happy to help you. Isn't that right, Pat? Pat and I talked, I think, for 6 months, right? And then she was going to come to us. And then she said, Armando, I found a better place that I think I'm going to be happier at in the Westland. And I said, I'm happy for you. As long as you need to be.
Give some background. When Pat got my message and Armando was on the panel, she said, Virginia, that's who I talked with for so long. And I said, well, I'll protect you. That's the reason we are seated.
That's why Anne's in the middle, right there.
So then I talked to Armando. I said, by the way, Armando, Pat Sykes is one of our panelists. I believe you've met Pat. Yes, she's a very strong woman. I said, yes, she is. And anyway, they promised to be nice to each other. He did say the doors are still open at the Delaney.
Right. That's right. At any time we could throw down at any time, but no.
Told you I already had a history with the with the Wesleyan. My mother was at the Wesleyan skilled nursing, and
It's an excellent place. It really is.
the she died at the Wesleyan, so I had
They gave her good care.
Yeah. In fact, I was just there when I was laughing with the employees there because the running joke is when they're full, they say, you need to go to the Delaney. And when we're full, we say, you need to go to the Wesleyan. So no, it's really is a very nice place. And there's a lot of nice places here. There really is. But the goal is to try to meet as many of your needs as we can and to make you guys happy. That's what we want. And it's not a relationship where we're going to just pull you in. We want you to be happy. We want you to look forward to meeting people. And Gloria, you and I are very good friends, at meeting people and being social again. COVID was horrible for all of us. And you walk in and you realize, oh, I know that person, and I know that person. Oh, do you have bridge here? You have mahjong here? Volleyball here? You know, it's just a way to come back out and say, I can meet people and be social and take trips again.
You know, and the importance of visiting communities, and part of it too is, and we've often heard this, but okay, so we have the printout of all the activities. Ooh, these activities sound good. But I think the secret is go see what's really going on.
Correct.
Are they really doing that? And, you know, one of the best things, and when we have our discovery tours or we visit communities, I think we're doing them this spring. We did them a year ago now. I know Dorholtz were regular attendees on that. Pat was, and some of our other friends were. We had residents give tours. Nothing against the staff. They could welcome us, but then they had residents. So then you could really get more of the inside story. What is it? What is life like here? And that's so critical. If you're looking at communities and you need some help with some of that, we often have connections that we can help you with. Part you made too about the families. When the family works together, it just can be so much more of a pleasant. In fact, this was one who moved in. You all referred me to a couple, and their kids were very involved, but they were a team. You know, the kids were doing the lifting. They didn't need help with they were doing the move. They had it arranged. They did got rid of the stuff. Anyway, they did a great job. But it was always a team. And then I became part of their team too, to help fill in some bits and pieces and take care of the real estate. And it was just, it's wonderful. And I know others where, yeah, dropping people off at the door is not a good idea for anybody.
It is not, and I hope that doesn't happen to anyone. And we always discourage that. Well, we're gonna rent the apartment. Well, really, do you want to do it this way? Because it's not the way it should be. It should be fun. Uh, I moved. I'm not happy when but I moved when I moved. But I live 2 blocks from the church now. I live on the lake, and now I can walk down to Dos Salsas anytime I want to and get something and get it back home, and it's still warm. I'm excited about that. So I'm very happy that my neighbors are wonderful, and that's what we want. And I always tell people when we take a tour, so if you take anything from this, anything at all, wherever you go, look at the people that are living at the community. If they're happy, if they're happy and they're having a good time, that's a community you want to consider. If they're friendly and they're coming to you and say, "Hi, are you thinking about moving in? Do you have any questions for me?" That's a community you want to consider. If someone walks up to you and says, "Do you have your wallet?" Keep walking. I have a gentleman who is a blackjack dealer in our community, and he'll ask someone, "Are you thinking of moving in? Do you have your wallet? Come on, let them finish the tour. Let's go play blackjack." Keep walking. But that's what you want. You want a neighborhood feeling in your community. You want to make friends.
And along that line, when people will say, and we've had reflected, and this was not from our discovery tours, but other times I've had people tell me, just like you said, well, I went to visit the community and people just didn't have smiles on their faces. And it makes a statement, or someone will say, wow, I just felt like there was this joy going on.
An energy about the community.
We all have different expectations. We have different lifestyles. No, it's the reason we're blessed to have the variety of communities. Each community has its own personality. You all highlighted one particular one. As we say with independent living, some type of meal plan is part of it. Whether or not you have 3 meals a day, you have a voucher for so much money to use at one of the dining venues or whatever it might be, or one of the groups of homes that are communities that has breakfast served at 8:30, lunch served at 12, dinner served at 5:30, and you go sit family style around that table. For some people, that really appeals to you. You don't have to worry about, is anybody going to sit with me? You're going to sit at a table for 4, and there are going to be people there. Others like the flexibility, or you find the people that go to lunch at 11:30 or whatever. So those are some of the things you want to find out about a community also. The personality, and we still need to take a video of beanbag baseball and do that. It's so much fun to hear. Or for those of you who are bakers, I think about someone, he loved to bake, so he's known as the cookie baker. He had called on to bake cookies for all kinds of events. You're not shutting down your life. You're opening a new chapter with opportunities for experiences and engagement. Going over to Fredericksburg for a wine tasting, that's not something I'd love to do it, but I don't want to have to figure out about the driving back and forth. Wow. Let me go on your bus. Let me know the next one. I need to go check out the activities, so that might be a good one to come check out. You'd also mentioned from your experience for people who move to a community and then sell their home and do all the other stuff, that your observation is that's worked much better.
So one of the hurdles that people always ask me, well, I can't, or always tell me, I'm not ready to move yet because I still got to sell my house. I've got to put it up. I've got to downsize, and I always recommend you guys to. There's a community group that you have to be involved with, but I've got to downsize and I've got to sell my house. Now, I've built 4 houses in my short marriage and moved about 5 times, and I know most of you have done at least that much or close to. I hated to be in the middle of dinner and get a call from a realtor and say, "Oh, by the way, I need to show your house in 30 minutes," and leave, or make sure everything was presentable, or put the cookies in the oven so they could smell the chocolate chip cookies as they were coming in. I just wanted to be home and relax. That was horrible. And then when I learned this last time is I bought a house, I moved into a house, and I just set my house up nice and neat and left it that way till it sold. And so I have to remind people, I said, if you wait till you sell your house and then go back to the community and say, "I'm ready to move in," the apartment you want may not be available. And now you have to go somewhere else or you have to take what's available. Always easier to move in and put your house on the market, get it nice and neat, nice and clean, and not have to worry about keeping it clean. Because you can always go back and forth to your house to move things out easily, as opposed to, I've got to be out and I've got to take whatever you have. Because the 2-bedroom, 2-bath with the balcony overlooking the patio that I wanted, you sold while I was waiting to sell my house.
So the importance there, less stress for you if you move. You're not trying to keep your house ready for shows, not the easiest thing. And if you, well, I'll just wait, and then the apartment's not available that you want, or possibly is not available. And you say, oh, well, my house sold and I'm going to have an estate sale. I need to have it in the next 3 weeks. Guess what? Generally, unless you find quite by coincidence an opening, your good estate plan, your good estate salespeople, they're booked out weeks, if not months in advance. Trying to plan an estate sale in 2 or 3 weeks, pretty, if you want a quality, reputable company, that's a challenge. All of that. So it's just, oh, but then I'm going to pay for my apartment and pay for my house. True. But often we can sell the house much faster in a much easier condition. So that was another thing. I think I'm going to open it up for questions. Any other words of wisdom that any of you can think of? Oh, I have to tell one funny story here. When I won't say a community, but when Pat was in the downsizing club and she was reporting on her community visits, some that you did on your own and some as our tour, there was one. She really did not like the carpet. The pattern on the carpet made it very, I don't remember how you described it, but it made you
Dizzy.
So anyway, you never know what we learn when we visit places. Okay, let's open this up for questions. And Brielle is going to be our mic runner today. If you'll raise your hand. Okay.
Hi, you've told us a lot of positives. I'd like to know what was the biggest adjustment that you found the most difficult?
Good question. Okay, we talked about the positives. What are the biggest adjustments? What were the negatives? Okay, name it. Okay. Any?
Probably living in community where you had your house for all these years. You think back to your college days type of a thing. What amenities you'll be sharing. One of the things when I came to move was, do I want to take my ironing board? Well, there was there to use, but just getting used to living in community.
When you think about it, when there was a good point about colleges when we had the laundry rooms, and if you were so inclined to iron your clothes, but now we're sharing some of that space with people, and there's always that. Well, some people we connect with and some we don't. But find the people you connect with and go on. But any other what? Erin?
No, there's always lots of good people to connect with, but it's just thinking back to those days. And that's when my daughter first came and she said, this is nothing more than a sorority house with a few men thrown in.
Okay. All right. Pat, what would be the drawbacks, negatives you would consider that you've experienced?
Remembering people's names that you've met. We wear name tags, and that helps. You meet people and you know you've met them, but it's like, oh my God, what was their name?
And you know what? I bet they're having the same feeling. So
They're having the same thing. My name is Pat. When I was a schoolgirl, it's like 5 people in my class might be named Pat. A lot of people I'm meeting now are about my age. There's a lot of Pats. So it's like, oh, well.
When in doubt, say Pat.
sounds good. Okay. Anything else?
Well,
This end up to me.
and then it's the people you meet and you hear their story. And then you hear their story again. here's their story again. And you keep a straight face and you say, I'm not going to say I heard that.
We have respect for our fellow residents there, and we may find ourselves doing that same thing. So
My next door neighbor, I love her to death, but she talks more than anybody I have ever met in my life. She, the very first night I met her, she told me about her cat that died a year and a half ago, but her cat's name's Miss Kitty, same name as my cat. When she finally took a breath, I told her I had a cat named Miss Kitty. And she was so excited, she couldn't wait to come to my apartment and meet my Miss Kitty. But now she just talks all the time.
So I think the word of wisdom here is you find us in any situation, we find our own survival strategy of, oh, I'm supposed to go meet somebody or whatever it might be. And you know what? I know you do it with great respect because you are, that's the nature of us. We always respect people. We find what works for us. Okay. Armando, okay, just a minute, Gloria. Armando, anything you would see from your observations of what some of the drawbacks might be?
Um, Everyone always tells me I'm going to get lost in here. And in the beginning, we all do. When we all started work, I said, when I started working here, I got lost in here because for some reason, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4 on the apartments. This apartment might be 1,400 and that apartment's 1,440, and it throws everything off. That's one, but people quickly learn that. And the second one is the food, because some people like spicy food and some people don't like spicy food. And it takes us about a week or two for the waiters to know your preferences and tell the cook, not so spicy for it's Mrs. Smith, very spicy for Mr. Smith.
Now,
That's the
that
thing
says
that's
a
the big
lot
one.
about a community if they're willing to get to know their residents and try to accommodate.
Oh, I will tell you that we have residents move in that a family will say, they can't have spicy food or they can't have sweets. And when they first move in and we don't know them yet, they're getting all the sweets they want until the waiter figures it out. And the waiter then says, oh, Mr. Smith, you can't have any sweets. You can't have ice cream. Then it's like, oh, okay. So they realize it's a short period of time before we realize what they can't and can't have. And they're going to take as much advantage of it as they can.
Sounds good. Okay, Gloria.
Yeah. Hi. I live in Sun City too, in a small house. And I'm contemplating the Delaney or the Wesleyan. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
How long does it take to go from living in a home to living in what is essentially a small apartment? We're all used to homes. And we've been living in them since we were born. And I think there's going to be a big and serious adjustments period there.
Good point. So the idea of most of our lives, we've lived in houses, we've lived in homes, we've got space and whatever. And so this is an adjustment. We are now in a smaller space within a community. And so how does that adjustment work? Look like you wanted to speak to that.
I can speak a little bit to that. That's always the case. You guys are coming from a larger house to a smaller apartment style. But what I find is one or the other will tell me, well, we don't use that room anymore. We don't use this room anymore. We don't use this room anymore. The kids are gone, so those doors are closed. We use the living room and our bedroom and the kitchen. 3 rooms is what we're using. We have furniture in all the other rooms. What am I going to do with that? That's the bigger concern, not the space. The space most of the time is exactly what you need because you're choosing the apartment. You're saying, this will meet my needs. It's what am I going to do with all the other stuff I have in my house now? Because my house is 3,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet. I have a huge house. Don't use that much house anymore, but I have a huge house. So it's the space that you have. You're choosing the apartment and it'll meet your needs.
And I think the space is right in terms of not only a lot of us have rooms we don't use, but what do we do often with those rooms we don't use? Fill them with stuff, and so really, you said it in a very nice way, Armando. Often we see that stuff as a stumbling block. Oh no, I just can't do it. Even if they've signed paperwork, I'm moving, go home, you walk in your house, you see all this stuff, and I'm not. I can't live without this, or I'll never be able to go through it. That's where you need professionals to help with that. So I mean, it's kind of, is that sort of answer your question, Glo? You're right. You've got, and we say, I was going to, but these apartments cost so much and my house is paid for. Your house may be paid for, but you're still paying insurance, lawn maintenance, keep up, taxes, if you're in an HOA. So you're out expenses with your house, even if it's paid for. Some people forget to put that into the equation. Anything else you all want to say about the adjustment?
I haven't found the adjustment to be very hard.
Okay.
It's relatively easy. My biggest frustration when I moved in, and it was Virginia was still at my new apartment when I was about to melt down, was with Optimum.
Oh. That was supposed to be on the list of do not speak about.
I know. But I had Optimum when I lived in Sun City. I have Optimum now. I thought I was simply transferring my service, but they wouldn't let me keep my TiVo. I still don't have my TiVo. And yet, when you look it up, they offer TiVo. So I'm still frustrated with Optimum. And every time I call them, I don't get anybody that speaks English as the first language.
Yes, I was there when they came to install that. It was not necessarily the most lovely scene when she was very disappointed. I'm just going, oh my goodness.
And so he's muttering to the people on the the Optimum man, muttering to the people on the other end of the line he's talking to. Why don't you tell these people they're not going to keep their TiVo?
Be prepared. And flexibility is important.
So when I'm watching TV and there's an Optimum advertisement, blood pressure goes up.
There's some things you forget when you walk out of this room. Don't tell Optimum what. Okay. All right. Ann, anything you want to add?
I can't top that one.
Okay. All right. Other questions that people have over here?
Since I'm new today and you keep mentioning the downsizing club,
Mhm.
what is that?
Okay. And then we can talk more in depth afterwards, but let me just give another quick overview. It is a support group. We meet monthly, first Thursday of each month. And some people, were in it and have moved, and others are planning ahead. But it's to help. We just share a lot about the downsizing process. So people do set their own goals. What are they working towards? We also want to have content so they're more prepared when they are ready to move. We talk about the role of liquidation, of move management, understanding when you list your home. So it's a lot of, so there's content, but a lot of it is your own personal. Any of the downsizing club members want to add anything? Quiet group. Sharon's going to. Sandra.
I brought notes.
Oh.
I started attending seminars before COVID, but I just went to a couple in person, then on Zoom, and really loved it. And then I think I was a charter member of the Downsizing Club a couple of years ago. And I was caring for my parents who were in their 90s. They both have died since then, so I have watched all of the steps they've gone through. They were living with us, so the housing wasn't an issue. But I saw all of the, new legal documents put in place in a timely manner and got my mother into memory care at the Delaney in a timely manner. And then I had to deal with both of their estates after they died. So I saw all of this stuff, and I am the queen of procrastination. So I knew I better start learning something now, or I'm going to be in a big mess someday. So I started going to the downsizing club. I have learned so much. I'm not planning on leaving my home, nor is my husband anytime soon. But we decided after all of this education, we want to start fixing it up, repairing it a little so we can live in it with a few new things. And then it's readier for sale when we do need to downsize. I know things I need to be doing now and in the next couple of years. I'm informed, and I like to be informed rather than having something just fall in my lap. So I highly recommend the Downsizing Club, and it's fun. I'm being educated and having resources, and it's like a support group, just like Virginia has said.
But she was okay. I'm sorry, it was hard to hear. She was saying that she knew from her experience with caring for her parents the need for dealing with everything from legal documents to decision making. And I think the point being, it really created you wanting to be more prepared for this and not to leave it to her two sons. You can have interesting stories about who's going to care for her. We won't go there right now. But the point she said she is more informed about this process, and just and it's in helping her take action. They're not moving anytime soon. In their case, they have a home here in Georgetown. They've decided they're going to go ahead and do some things to the home to enjoy it, rather than I'm going to put my house in the market, so I'm going to do this, this, and this. They want to enjoy it. Oh, come to the table with orange cloth. Talk to me afterwards. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah, I'm the one that hosted. Yes, back here, Brielle. Nancy.
This is a fairly random question, and it's for Virginia and Armando. One of the things that I think about is the ability to house family visitors when they come to visit, because both of my kids are out of state in North Carolina. And I want to be able to have my grandchildren nearby. So in various situations, other than sending them to a hotel, are there on-site facilities that would be like a guest suite or something like that?
Outstanding question, because I hear that a lot about, our home has been the gathering place. If you listen to our video visits on our blog, I think it was the last one I did, it talked about what's going to happen to Thanksgiving dinner when I leave my home, and that kind of relates to that. But Armando, speak to how communities address that.
Well, very good question. And I'm not sure, was Ann saying that they could stay with you when you were saying yes? Is that what you were?
Yes.
I meant her friends could stay with you, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're going to have signups in their apartments. Okay.
So we don't have an open apartment for them to stay because they're unfurnished. And we tend to run full, pretty close to being full. But when we do, yes, we're more than happy relatives stay there. Most of the time, relatives are staying just like they were coming. They were going to be staying in your apartment. But it's such a close-knit community. We have a lot of members that'll go out of state or out of town for the holidays, and they'll let the other members use their family stay in their apartment. Where we had someone stay in an apartment for 2 weeks because they were down from out of state. The person in that apartment was gone for 2 weeks for out of state, and she said, "Oh, let them stay in my apartment." So they can stay with you, or they can maybe use an open apartment if we have one, but I don't have one. At least in the Delaney, we don't have one that's preset for someone to move in and stay there.
What about participation in activities? Or if they're, can they join you?
It's
for
like a cruise ship. They can join for meals. They really quickly, I will say this. So in independent living, as Virginia pointed out, it's built into our rent. Your meal plan is built into the rent. So it's restaurant dining. So you can invite guests over to eat with you. And a lot of times our chef will do a 5-star meal with anything from porterhouse steaks to rack of lamb to lobster. And that's usually when you bring guests.
Good point.
And I had several
Your guests.
I had several community members come up to me and say, we love our family. Oh, we love them so much. But is there any way they could pay for their own meals when they come visit us? So yes, they can participate in everything. They come down to our social happy hour, come down to the trips. They can eat. They are your guests there. So they are guests of the community.
I remember when my parents, this is a long time ago, before I was here and was into this, as it turns out, it was an independent living community. We were in North Texas. I didn't know what all was going on. They'd moved from Oklahoma there to the town where I was living. My kids were in elementary school at the time. They loved it. They had the best parties at that community. They would go over for Halloween. And when my mother made clown costumes for the kids, but also for herself and for my dad, and they really got the kids involved. There were parties. It varies to the community. Good question to ask. But most of the communities, because as you say, that's your family. They want to be your extended family.
Let's say something.
Sure.
The Wesleyan does have 2 rooms that they guest rooms that they rent out around in the $100 range for when family comes in. So it's usually less than the hotel, and they're right there on site, and they can participate in everything while they're there. And there's also a private dining room that seats about 12. And so if you reserve those ahead of time, you can have some private area there.
So no families have had anniversary or birthday or whatever celebration. So great question, Nancy. One more question, Jim. Here she comes.
If I were to go home and sit down and write all the costs that I have with the house that I live in, how would that compare with the cost of of all of the places that are available here in the Georgetown area?
Good question. He's asking about the cost of the communities. And I want to give some general things and maybe you can share. A lot of it, yes, there's basic, but it's also generally by apartment that there's a different cost. But I think you can give us some general range. Let's focus on independent living. What might people expect?
Well, in our community, we have everything from a 1,500 square foot apartment, which is another house, to a studio. Everything being included, meals, internet, housekeeping, maintenance of the apartment. I mean, like I said, it's a cruise ship on land. You're looking at a studio starts somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3,500. And that 1,500 square foot apartment, you're looking close to $8,000. But truly, you're not doing anything. You're getting up in the morning and saying, what am I going to do today?
So if for that 2-bedroom apartment, you said how much?
That 1,500 square foot apartment, which is the most expensive apartment I have, runs about $8,000. And they're both full. I mean, we've got 4 of them. They're all full.
Okay. But I think often maybe around 5,000, isn't that kind of a?
You're probably looking for the most popular apartments we have. For 2 people, you're looking at about $5,000 to $6,000.
Yes, 5,000 to 6,000
A
a
month.
month. That's your meals. That's your.
That's your meal, that's your internet, that's the activities, that's the housekeeping, that's the maintenance of the apartment. The only thing that you would ever need a wallet for in our community, once you move in, is we have salons on site. And they're just people that are renting the space and you're paying for your haircut. Other than that, you walk out, you're not carrying any money.
Okay, let's see. Gloria had a question, and then we're going to wrap up here.
Am I on? Okay. I haven't finished adding it up yet, but I live in a 2-bedroom home in Sun City. I have done a lot of adding up. Yard care, I have to have a maid because I'm not allowed to use ladders anymore. So,
She was saying she has to have a maid, and she said, because she can't use ladders anymore to dust stuff and.
well, you'd be surprised how many things you've stored up high, you know, that, it costs me a great deal more to live in the house than what my idea is at the Delaney, which runs about 5,200, I
For
think.
the apartment that you like.
Yes.
So I
And-
wanted to see, that's kind of an average. You can go from there, you can go lower, you could go higher.
Yeah.
But
Now, my
you're
house
saying
is
it
paid-
balances out there.
My house is paid for, and I
Right.
still, it's
It
still
still costs
costing
to live in it.
a great deal of money.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have to think.
Okay. Good point. We're going to need to wrap up. I want to thank our panelists, if we can give them a round of applause. And I want to thank you all for being here, taking time to be here. I want to thank our AV staff for taking good care of us. And a big, big thanks, as always, to Brielle for being my lifesaver and more. So we will see you again, hopefully in January. Don't come the second or third Thursday in December. We will not be here. We will see you in January. You will be getting a postcard that will list all the seminars for next year. We're finalizing that. Don't forget to fill out your yellow feedback forms. And there are action steps for you. You were going to say something, Bria.
I was also going to say, if you have missed a month and you are looking for handouts, I don't have every month left over, but on the blue table over here, there are some packets from 2023. So if you're missing one that you'd like to pick up, check the table to see if we have that month.
If you want to fill up your binder. Okay, again, thank everybody. Have a very happy Thanksgiving and wonderful Christmas. And we're available. And we'll see you in January, if not before. And thank you all again very much, all of you.
Y'all have a great day.